antimicrobial agent. Yesterday we have discussed about the varieties of the terminologies like the Eagle effect and the post-antibiotic effect, MBC, MAC and other thing. So today, any doubts are there, you can ask at any time. Whereas today we will discuss about the how to choose an antimicrobial agent for the therapy of a disorder, especially the microbial disorder. So it is when an agent is indicated, that means it's an infectious disease, the choice should be depend on the peculiarities of the infectious organism, especially and also the condition of the patient. So that should be taken care while treating the disease. So the aim of chemotherapy should be to produce a selective action on the infecting organism for a dispersible period with the least effect on the host animal. Here we have to choose an antimicrobial agent in such a way that it should cause maximal antibacterial action with minimal effect on the host. So this will be achieved by the following steps. So varieties of the factors are there which are affecting the choice of an antimicrobial agent for the therapy of a bacterial disorder. The number one is the target organism. So first of all we have to identify the target organism, then select a suitable antimicrobial agent. That is the first step. Then identification of the causative organism can be made from the historical data. Maybe there is historical data and experience of a qualified veterinarian, and based on the organism identified by the C&S, culture and sensitivity test. And a rapid assessment of the nature of the organism can sometime be made on the basis of the differential strains such as the gram-negative strain or the gram-positive strain. But in most of the instances it may be required to the culture the effective or the infective organism. That is the better method. Whereas the newer methods which use the molecular biological techniques such as the PCR and other things are nowadays employed and becoming very important, especially the RBPT or the rapid plate agglutination test, and many other rapid tests are also popular because it takes minimum 3 days to have the culture and sensitivity tests, and it takes more time so that the treatment can be very fastly initiated. That's also the proper treatment, because as the time lags between the treatment, the patient's condition may go worse. So as early as the treatment need to be started. Then sensitivity pattern, especially the varieties of the antibiotics are there, then we need to choose a suitable one. That's why the bacterial sensitivity becomes very important to some cases to select the right antimicrobial agent. Especially this is useful when there is wide variation of the susceptibility of the different strains of the same bacterial species to the antimicrobial agent. So the most commonly used method is the Kirby-Bauer technique. So already you know this very well. And the drug related factor, once again the spectrum of activity, it is narrow spectrum or the broad spectrum antibiotics are there. So if the bacteriological services are not available for the treatment, then cannot be delayed, because we cannot delay the treatment because the result has not come, because it may sometimes the life threatening infections like very fast death will occur, especially in case of anthrax etc. in the animal. So the empirical antimicrobial therapy. So the empirical therapy means use of the antimicrobial drug in absence of an etiological diagnosis. So the confirmatory diagnosis need not be waited, and we can start the therapy to cover all the likely organisms with a broad spectrum drug may be caused. So that is the first step. Whereas the polymicrobial infections may also require a broad spectrum antimicrobial agent. Means polymicrobial means the more than one microorganisms may participate in the disease causing process. So hence we need to have one or two or more agents, especially antimicrobial agents. Then the type of the activity, a selection of the bactericidal or bactericidal drug, which drug need to be selected, and the bactericidal antimicrobial agent may be preferred over the bacteriostatic infections, especially the life-threatening diseases such as the anthrax and the hemorrhagic septicemia, and many more diseases are life-threatening, especially in case of animal, and we need to select a suitable antibiotic, and it should be bactericidal. Then also the other infections like endocarditis, infections at less accessible sites, in impaired host defense, and when carrier state is possible. So all these are need to be considered. So the bacteriostatic drugs only inhibit the multiplication of bacteria and rely upon host defense mechanism to clear the infections. Hence, they should be used only when host immunity is strong and body systems are functioning normally. So here there is whenever there is an acute infection, you have to go for the bactericidal drug, whereas in case of the not acute conditions like the urinary tract infection and the other infections, you can go for the bacteriostatic drugs which are not life threatening, because the bacteriostatic drugs need to arrest the growth of the microorganism, and thus the host defense mechanism need to remove the bacteria out of the body, whereas the bactericidal agents, they are directly killing the microorganisms. So in acute conditions bactericidal, in the chronic conditions bacteriostatic drugs may be useful. Whereas the examples of some of the broad spectrum and narrow spectrum antimicrobial drugs are as mentioned below. The broad spectrum, the ampicillin, is also effective against the gram-positive and negative, followed by the carboncillin, carboxymethylpenicillins, the cephalosporins. So they are all the bactericidal broad spectrum agents. Then of course the chloramphenicol, even though it's a bacteriostatic drug, in higher concentration it is acting as the bactericidal. Then tetracycline and sulfonamides, of course. The narrow spectrum drugs are the penicillin G, the streptomycin. So penicillin G is effective only against the gram-positive bacteria, whereas the streptomycin is effective against the gram-negative bacteria. Erythromycin is also negative, and lincomycin, vancomycin, and polymyxin B, gram-positive. So these are all some of the examples of gram-positive and gram-negative microorganisms, and we will learn the individual classes in future. Then pharmacokinetic property, one should know it very commonly. That's why the pharmacology need to be learned by you persons, because unless you know how much quantity of the drug has reached the site of action with minimal inhibitory concentration, or MBC, maximal, the minimal bactericidal concentration. So the pharmacokinetic profile determines the effective concentration of a drug at the site of infection or adequate length of the time. So that's also important. At the drug, especially antimicrobial drug, should reach the site of action. Suppose in case of mastitis, the tissue where the milk is produced. So the acinar tissues need to be produced, especially in case of pneumonia, it need to reach the lung tissue. In nephritis or kidney infection, it should need the kidney nephrons, and also in case of the urethritis, etc., it should reach and it should be in contact with the microorganism for a minimum time to kill them. So the antibacterials such as chloramphenicol and macrolides are extensively metabolized, and so not used to treat urinary tract infections, for which drugs undergoing rapid renal excretion and accumulation in the urine are used. So suppose there is a kidney infection or urethritis or cystitis the animal might have got, then you cannot go for a drug which is not excreted through urine. That's also, the drug should be excreted through urine in active form. So that's very important to treat such infection. Whereas the nalidixic acid and nitrofurantoin are the urinary antiseptics. Their concentration is very high and the urinary tract infections will be cured. Whereas the fluoroquinolones have excellent tissue penetrations and attain high concentration in almost all the body tissues. The drugs like the enrofloxacin, then ciprofloxacin and many more drugs, they are designed in such a way that they are penetrating the different body tissues in high concentrations. And sulfonamides and chloramphenicol readily enter the cerebrospinal fluid, whereas the penicillin and aminoglycosides penetrate poorly into CSF unless there is a meningitis is there. So the sulfonamides and chloramphenicol, they pass the cerebrospinal fluid, whereas the penicillin and aminoglycosides are not because of their chemical nature, because the aminoglycosides, they have got the chemical structure in such a way that it cannot penetrate the CSF because they are the quaternary ammonium compound and they are related to such chemical group. The extensive plasma protein binding like the doxycycline have less penetration into the infected sites by passive diffusion, especially the doxycycline, which is used as the drug of choice in corona to eradicate the secondary bacterial infection. So the route of administration, the availability of the drug preparations determine the drug selection in many instances, because not all drugs are available for administration by all the routes. So here is a tricky situation, because many times the antibiotic may be sensitive. It may show very high sensitivity pattern in case of the culture and sensitivity test, but that's the in vitro test. Whereas if it is administered the in vivo, then the same concentration may not reach the site of action. That's why we need to select such an antimicrobial among the sensitive antibiotics, microorganisms, so that it has got the good pharmacokinetic property to reach the site of action in high concentration. Then, so whereas in case of the critically ill patients or severely or the ill patients, a parenteral route is always advisable, especially in case of cattle also. The parenteral route is one of the most preferred route, because if you administer the drug orally, it will go to the rumen, then most of the drugs get metabolized in the rumen to the inactive metabolite. So in order to have the very high concentration, then the parenteral route, especially intramuscular, then subcutaneous or the intravenous routes are always preferred. In order to attain effective concentration in the CSF, the initial thecal injection, intrathecal injection may be administered. Then oral administration of the antimicrobial agent is preferred for long-term administration of the antimicrobial drug, because every day the animal cannot be brought to the hospital and get the injection. So the oral administration is preferred over long term, especially in case of dogs. Suppose to treat a urinary tract infections, then it need to be treated for 10 or 15 days sometimes, and also the dermatitis with the cephalosporins, then it need to be administered orally. And drugs are distributed to extracellular fluid like the penicillins, cephalosporins and the aminoglycosides. And whereas the drugs distributed to total body water are the fluoroquinolones, then also the chloramphenicol, the doxycycline, minocycline, sulfonamides, erythromycin and also the clindamycins are the examples. Whereas the drugs distributed to CSF is the sulfonamides, of course the doxycycline, then minocycline and the anti-TB drug rifamycin or rifampicin. So these are the drug preferred especially for the cerebrospinal fluid, or also later it need to penetrate through the blood-brain barrier. Drugs contraindicated in case of the bile duct infections, the doxycycline, the minocycline, the clindamycin, of course the fluoroquinolones, the metronidazole, the erythromycin, rifamycin, nitrofurantoin and penicillins. So these are the drugs concentrated in the bile, because the route of excretion of this drug is the bile. And drugs contraindicated in urine, especially concentrated in urine, are the very high concentration in the urine happens with the fluoroquinolones, then sulfonamides, then also the nalidixic acid, cephalosporins and vancomycin. So these are the drugs. Among these drugs, we have to select the least toxic and the highly effective drug. Whereas in case of non-hospitalized animals, and when target is GI infection, so if the animal is suffering from a severe diarrhea with the bacterial infection, then the aminoglycosides, the penicillin G, vancomycin and many cephalosporins have to be given by injection only, because aminoglycosides cannot be administered orally as they are destroyed in the gastric juice itself. And also the penicillin G, vancomycin, of course few cephalosporins have to be given by injection only, just like the ceftriaxone and many more drugs. Then there is another term known as the drug interactions. So the two or more antibiotics or some other drugs, maybe the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents and also some B-complex vitamins, say are used in combination to other pharmacological agents, such as sometimes the analgesic and anti-inflammatory agents. And there is a chance that these ADRs, adverse drug reactions, in some cases hamper the efficacy to enhance the toxicity of the antimicrobial agent. So if we combine two or more agents for the therapeutic purpose, then there is a chance that it may hamper the efficacy of one or the other. So for example, the NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents will enhance the CNS toxicity of the fluoroquinolone. So if aspirin is given along with that of this norfloxacin or any other drug, then the penetration capacity of the norfloxacin will be increased. Then concurrent use of the procaine antagonists, especially antagonizes the action of the sulfonamides. So procaine penicillin, benzathine penicillin, etc., they need not be administered with the sulfonamides. Then relative toxicity, of course we have learnt the relative toxicity yesterday. So antimicrobial drugs vary considerably in their toxic potential, like acute, subacute, chronic, subchronic and highly toxic, less toxic, then moderately toxic. Like this, the relative toxicity will be there. And penicillins are among the least toxic of almost all the antimicrobial agents. See, once again I will repeat it, the penicillins are among the least toxic of all antimicrobial drugs. So they should be preferred over aminoglycosides and the chloramphenicol. So because you may ask the question, the thing is they can cause the severe allergic reactions, or else they are very very safe. Even though the 20 times the higher dose, they are not going to cause any toxicity. Whereas the penicillins are contraindicated in those patients who are hypersensitive to the entire beta-lactam group, antibiotic group. So the drugs like chloramphenicol and clindamycin are reserved for specific or life-threatening infections because their potential for serious toxicity. So suddenly we should not directly go to the chloramphenicol and the clindamycin, etc., the higher antibiotics, because they should be reserved for the potential use in case of the severe toxicity of these products. So need to be carefully administered. So what's a relative toxicity? There is a classification, especially you will once again learn in this toxicology is concerned, but here the relative toxicity classification is like that. It is depending upon the LD50. It varies as the milligram per kg body weight, usually expressed as the unit mass per unit body weight. So the classification goes like this: an extremely toxic substance, then it is the 1 grain, means less than 1 milligram per kg. whereas highly toxic 1 TS or 2 spoonful, and moderately toxic 1 ounce, OZ means ounce. Slightly toxic is 1 pint, and practically non-toxic is 1 quarter, and relatively harmless is more than 1 quarter. Means very high doses also the drug is not causing the toxicity, and most of the food materials will come in this category, relatively harmless or either practically non-toxic. So practically non-toxic, especially the salt etc., they will come under this particular group. Then antimicrobial policy, there should be antimicrobial policy, how to use the selection of antimicrobial agent. So it depends upon the predetermined policy, so that the development of bacterial resistance to antimicrobial drugs may be it may be minimized. The changes in the resistant pattern in a particular area should be monitored, and the antimicrobial therapy altered accordingly. See, suppose in the Shimoga area, the most of the drugs, especially the fluoroquinolones, they are resistant to the mastitis caused by the Staphylococcus aureus. So we need to go for the another antibiotic, because this should be included in the policy, so that all the doctors in that particular area should be informed that the microorganisms causing the mastitis are resistant, and don't use the drug like the fluoroquinolones and many more. So you can use a drug which is sensitive to that particular microorganism, and one need to notify the doctor, yes, this is the drug need to be used in case of the mastitis etc. And change in resistant pattern in a particular area should be monitored timely, and antimicrobial therapy altered accordingly. So in general, a narrow spectrum and specific antimicrobial agent should be used when possible, and newer and the broad spectrum drugs should be reserved for situations where they are specifically intended. So always it says that start with a narrow spectrum, then if necessary go for a broad spectrum. Certain antimicrobials like the fluoroquinolones are not recommended in food producing animals like the milk, especially the meat etc., due to the apprehension of developing bacterial resistance in the human beings. So the certain drugs, especially the fluoroquinolones, should not be used in case of the food producing animal. Then if you use them, sufficient withdrawal period should be followed. So that is one of the apprehension that the bacterial resistance may also develop in the human being. We will learn how the bacterial resistance develops later in the future classes. And the cost of the therapy, yes, this is the most worried factor by most of the cattle owners, because sometimes they are poor, and often several drugs may show similar efficacy in treating the infection, but vary widely in the cost, because if it is a new drug which is introduced into the market, it will cost more when compared to the old drug. And in such cases, a less costly and easily available drug should be used. That's over the costly drugs. So the cost of the efficacy is okay, but the cost is also should be very less, the cost of the treatment. And host factors, then the host defense mechanisms, then elimination of infecting organism depends on the integrity of the host defense mechanism. So that's what it is happening in the COVID-19, especially the persons who are having the strong immunity, they are recovering very fast, whereas the persons with comorbidity and with less immunity are suffering more from the viral infections. So the elimination is of such agents is very important, and the deficient immune capabilities can modify the effectiveness of many antimicrobial drugs. So especially those with only bacteriostatic actions. Hence, especially the drugs with high activity should be used for against a particular infection. The higher than usual doses of the bactericidal agents and longer treatment are required to eliminate infecting organisms in immunocompromised patients. So, especially in case of patients with HIV, wherein which a lot of immunocompromisation is there, then the higher doses of the bactericidal agents and longer treatment are required in such patients. So, one should do that particular job very properly to combat the bacterial infections. So, the host defense mechanism is also one of the important thing that is taking part in case of the selection of the antimicrobial agents. So, the other factors are also there which can influence the choosing of the antimicrobial agents, and the deficient immune system, then you should select an antimicrobial agent for prolonged use, especially in case of the immunocompromised patient. Whereas the pathological conditions like renal insufficiency, hepatic dysfunction and meningitis so often alter the response and toxic potential of some of the antimicrobial agents. Whereas the renal diseases may predispose the toxic effects, especially of the aminoglycosides, and because these drugs especially accumulate in kidneys in renal failure, whereas the antimicrobial agents those undergo the extensive metabolism, or they are all excreted via the biliary routes and should be favored in such patients. Especially suppose the renal disorders or the kidney function is not proper, then the aminoglycosides are not indicated because they cause toxicity. And the hepatic dysfunction, the antimicrobial agents which are concentrated or eliminated via the liver, most of the drugs follow this route only. So, they are not indicated in the treating patients with the liver disorders. Whenever there is a hepatitis and other things, they should be restricted use of certain drugs. And whenever the meningitis is there, penicillin should not be used in meningitis because they concentrate more in CNS and increases the chances of the seizures, unless or otherwise they are indicated. Then the local factors like the pus, presence of the pus, tissue debris and the body secretions decrease the efficacy of most antimicrobial agents. So, especially the sulfonamides and the aminoglycosides. Then sometimes the hematomas may be present. Hematomas are the blood filled cavities, and these favor the bacterial growth and impair the activity of certain antimicrobial agents, whereas the penicillins and cephalosporins and tetracyclines bind to the degraded hemoglobin in the hematomas. So, they should be used. Whereas the pH is also another important thing. The pH of the body fluid determines the efficacy of certain drugs. For example, the aminoglycosides are more active in alkaline urine or alkaline pH, and conversely the methenamine and nitrofurantoin are more effective in acidic conditions. So, in case of mastitis, the pH of the milk will turn to the basic things. So, such drugs should be used, especially the penicillins are inactivated in the too much acidic pH. Then the age, the renal and hepatic elimination process are often poorly developed in the young animals, whereas they are having the deficiency in case of geriatric patients. So, the neonates are susceptible to the toxic effect of the drugs like the chloramphenicol and sulfonamide. They are toxic, especially in case of the cows and smaller animals. Whereas the tetracyclines are contraindicated in the very young animals because they accumulate in developing bone and the teeth discoloration and the weakening may occur. Whereas the fluoroquinolones are contraindicated in growing dogs because they interfere with the cartilage growth. So, cartilages are not properly grown and hence they should not be used in such patients. Whereas there is a species difference, yes, especially in case of veterinary practice. Varieties of the animals are there, starting from the cattle, sheep, goat, pig, dog, then whatnot. So, the species difference, there is a difference in the capacity to absorb the drug, eliminate the drug, then the antimicrobials are which are susceptible to the adverse effect of the drug. For example, the tetracyclines by any route may be associated with enterocolitis in case of the horses subject to the stress factor, whereas the broad spectrum antimicrobial agents are usually not administered by oral route, especially in animals with functional rumen, because they disrupt the ruminal microflora. Example is the tetracyclines are orally not indicated, whereas the parenteral therapy is okay, whereas the cats are more susceptible to the morphine and the other derivatives, and also to the chloramphenicol toxicity due to the deficient glucuronide conjugation. So because of this thing, the elimination process gets hampered and they become more susceptible. The pregnancy, the antimicrobial agent should be avoided in pregnant animals except when essentially required, and because most of these drugs the blood placental barrier, so very high quantity of the plasma concentration will be achieved, especially certain antimicrobial drugs. And aminoglycosides carry the risk of hearing loss, and tetracycline can cause the inhibition of bone growth in the fetus if they are used for longer time. And some of the anthelmintics like are this embryotoxic, or they are also teratogenic. So the antibiotics and some of the anthelmintics like the albendazole, they are embryotoxic and teratogenic. And the genetic factors, certain genetic abnormalities must be considered while choosing the antimicrobial agents. For example, the sulfonamides and chloramphenicol may produce acute hemolysis in the patients with the deficiency of the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme. So this causes the more toxicity of the particular substances and causes the acute hemolysis in the patients. Then the bacterial sensitivity testing, we will see now, this is the general topic, and the degree of sensitivity or resistance of various bacteria to different concentrations of the antimicrobial agents in vitro. Please underline this in vitro by two microbial methods, that is, one is the disc diffusion and tube dilution methods. So there are two methods to find all these things. Then the first one is the disc diffusion. The disc diffusion or the Kirby-Bauer technique is commonly used in the laboratories for determining the infecting microorganism and susceptibility to varieties of the drugs. So in this method, the discs of porous paper impregnated with known amounts of the antibacterial drugs are placed on the surface of an agar plate that has been streaked or swabbed with bacteria obtained from the patient who is suffering from the infections. So suppose in case of mastitis, the milk sample is given for the formation of this disc for the culture and sensitivity test. The bacterial culture has been previously grown, especially it will be grown in broth or standard turbidity, and the agar plate is then incubated overnight or more, that is 12 to 24 hours, and the microorganism growth or lack of growth both are monitored, and lack of microbial growth around the disc is called as the zone of inhibition. So this indicates the sensitivity of the microorganism to the drug which is placed in the culture and sensitivity disc, whereas the microbial growth right up to the disc, that is the no zone of inhibition, indicates that insensitivity or resistance of the microorganism to the concerned drug. So if the microorganism is killed by the antibiotic, more zone of inhibition will be there. The microbial growth is inhibited to a larger diameter, longer zone of inhibition, that's called as, and this indicates high susceptibility of the organism, and of the smaller diameter will indicate mild to moderate susceptibility of the microorganisms. So thus, depending on the diameter of zone of inhibition, the organism is graded as the sensitive organism, the moderately sensitive or the intermediate sensitive or the resistant microorganism. So this is how the drugs are usually they are classified as the sensitive, moderately sensitive or the more sensitive. So the ordinarily the concentration of the drug is disc correlates with that of the MIC of the drug. So the MIC of the drug is also calculated using this particular technology. The disc diffusion method is a convenient and relatively practicable method, but has certain limitations because it is one of the fast acting but the cheap also. The method is very slow because it takes 2 or 3 days, 24 to 36 hours for isolation of pure culture for testing, and not all the microorganisms will grow sufficiently to rapid to give reliable results in the disc diffusion methods, whereas the concentration of the drug in the disc may not be sufficient to inhibit the growth of the microorganisms. So all these factors we need to consider before interpretation. Then here you know that already in the microbiology you have learned how to put the antibiotic dispenser. This is the antibiotic dispenser and the inoculated agar plate with the microorganisms. So the first is we need to dispense the antibiotic discs with the dispenser. Then the antibiotic discs may be placed over the what you call as the agar plate. So the space antibiotic discs equidistant from each other on the speculated plate with a sterile forceps. You need to put on that particular strip like this, holding a sterile forceps and gently touch each disc with a sterile applicator or the forceps so that it will be embedded in the agar media. And following incubation, measure the diameter of each zone of inhibition. So after overnight incubation with that of the drug, then you can see the zone of inhibition. So here it is seen, and confluent bacterial growth is also seen. So by seeing a scale, so with a millimeter rule we can check how much quantity of the inhibition is there. So this is the technique very popularly used, Bauer-Kirby's technique. So since so many years the same is being used. Whereas the tube dilution method, the tube dilution is also called as the broth dilution test. The isolated organism is inoculated into the tubes having the liquid medium containing the increasing concentration of the drug. So we in this particular test, the varieties of these tubes will be what you call as the culture with increasing quantity of the antibiotics. The tubes are usually inoculated with a standard number of the isolated bacterial organisms. So minimum bacterial inhibition can only be by this method, and the tubes are then incubated for a standard period of time, after which each tube is observed for evidence of the growth of the microorganisms. The tube with lowest concentration of the drug showing no observable growth contains the minimum inhibitor concentration or MIC. So this is the highest dilution of the antimicrobial agent which causes the invisible growth of the microorganism. It's called as the minimal inhibitory concentration. So in contrast to the disc diffusion test, the tube dilution method is more useful, especially it provides the quantitative data regarding the amount of the drug necessary to inhibit the bacterial growth. Of course it is in vitro, but it gives some clue. And the tube dilution method can be further used to know the minimum bactericidal concentration. Yesterday we have seen that from the disc diffusion test a material is taken, then it is once again serially diluted. So this minimal bactericidal concentration, bacterial concentration each tube that showed no bacterial growth is further once again plated. The smallest concentration that produces no growth in the plate is the minimal bactericidal concentration. So here yesterday we have seen all these things, but the cultured organisms on the agar plate, they are taken out with the highest inhibition in this with the MIC. Then once again they are put in case of the known dilution concentration of the antibiotic. So here you can say that 1, 2, 4 and 8, the doubled concentration of antibacterials are seen. So here the highest concentration of the bacteria is seen because this contains the lowest concentration of the antibiotic, whereas the second tube contains the little higher quantity of the bacteria than the fourth and the other thing, whereas in the 8 microgram per deciliter or the ml, the growth, minimal growth is seen, that is the minimal bactericidal concentration, whereas in the other two tubes no turbidity or growth can be seen. So here the minimal growth is seen, and in the both other tubes the no growth is seen. So bacterial sensitivity testing by tube dilution method is the minimal bactericidal concentration can be learned. And combination of antimicrobial agents nowadays, it is an era of the fast track movements, and it requires the antimicrobial agents with the very fast acting especially, so treat the varieties of the acute infections. So this strategy to combine the antimicrobial agents will be in the following situation. Number one, to broaden the spectrum of the antibacterial activity. So penicillins are narrow spectrum agents, hence they will be combined with streptomycin, which is having the activity against the gram negative organisms. So this will broaden the spectrum of antibacterial activity of the penicillin. So treat mixed infection or obscure bacterial infections in which the organisms are not susceptible to a single antimicrobial therapy. So multiple antibiotics may be required to stop the growth of the microorganisms. In such case also the multiple antibiotics need to be used. And the another thing is to achieve synergistic antimicrobial activity against some resistant strains of the bacteria. So the bacterial strains may get resistance. So in this quantity, these antibacterial drugs are combined, just like sulfonamide is combined with the trimethoprim, that's called as the potentiated sulfonamides. Then another thing is to prevent emergence of resistant strains of the bacteria, and also to minimize the toxicity of an antimicrobial agent. So if they are used combinedly, their toxicity will be less, as if the single drug is used. The combination therapy may not always be useful, but particularly when the drugs are combined in a fixed dose mixture. So when two drugs interfere with each other's action, there is always a possibility, because the combination therapy also increases the chances of the super infection, means it is the growth of another bacteria, the one bacteria will be inhibited, whereas it causes the growth of another bacteria and may facilitate the emergence of bacterial resistance, particularly if inadequate doses of the non-synergistic drugs are used. Then the combination therapy may also increase the cost of the therapy, so that's also one of the restricting factor here. Then guidelines as for combination of antimicrobial drugs. So we need to find guidelines, or else many people will combine many drugs and ultimately nothing is going to act. So there is a guidelines of selection of antimicrobial agents, like the selection of should be based on the mechanism of action, which are different, and on the other spectra of the activity, those are complementary to each other. So Here the combination of the antibacterial is sometimes they are synergistic, whereas the combination of two bacteriostatics are additive in nature. So the combination of bactericidal drug with that of the bacteriostat agent often results in the antagonism. That's a normal saying, but many times it is not also. So many exceptions to be ruled out. Example, the combination of the bactericidal streptomycin and the bacteriostatic tetracycline produce the synergism action in the treatment of the brucellosis, and many confounding factors also play a role. So in case of treatment of the brucellosis, in which the brucella is a microorganisms, intracellular organism, and it need to be treated with the combination of the bactericidal streptomycin and also the bacteriostatic tetracycline. So that's also one of the indications. Then the type of the interaction between two antimicrobial drug in a combination may be evaluated from the plot of activity, especially in the isobologram. So this is it determines the minimal inhibitory concentration of the drug is reduced, that is the synergism. The minimal inhibitory concentration of one drug will be reduced in presence of another drug, that's called as the synergism. It is not at all affected, that is the addition, and increased, that is the antagonism in the presence of the another drug. So in an isobologram, the synergism is shown by a concave curve, addition by a straight line, and antagonism by a convex curve. So you can see that particular curve. So selected bactericidal and bacteriostatic drugs like the cephalosporins, then aminoglycosides, these are all the bactericidal drugs, quinolones, then cycloserine, vancomycin, polymyxin, vacitracin, rifamycin is a anti-tuberculosis drug, and the potentiated sulfonamides. Whereas the bacteriostatic drug like the classical example is the chloramphenicol, then followed by the tetracycline, macrolide antibiotics, the sulfonamides, the trimethoprim, lincosamide, and the tylosin, which is also effective in case of poultry, then the novobiocin. All these are the bacteriostatic drugs which used in combination. So what happens is bactericidal plus bactericidal is always having the synergistic effect, whereas the bacteriostatic plus bacteriostatic, it causes the additive effect, whereas the bactericidal plus bacteriostatic drug, they will have the antagonistic effect. Examples of the synergism are the combination of penicillin G and streptomycin produces the synergistic or the lethal effect on the enterococci, because the penicillin G enhances the penetration of the aminoglycoside, that's the streptomycin, into the bacterial cell by causing the bacterial cell wall damage will be caused. And also the combination of the sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim is a synergistic one, that is because they block the successive step of this conversion of dihydrofolic acid to tetrahydrofolic acid, that's the one, the folate synthesis will be inhibited, especially the metabolic pathway of the susceptible bacteria. The antagonism is the opposite action, and combination of the tetracycline or the chloramphenicol and the penicillins produce the reduced antibacterial activity, as the tetracycline inhibit the bacterial growth and multiplication. Those are essentially required for rapid cell wall damaging effect produced by the beta-lactam antibiotic. So these are opposite having the actions. Then the bacteriostatic drug produces stasis of the bacterial growth, thus interfering with the bactericidal drugs which require actively dividing cells. They require the bactericidal drugs. Then prophylactic use of the antimicrobial agents. So the antimicrobial drugs are sometimes required prophylactically, means to prevent the bacterial infection in animals which are exposed to the pathogens. So the antimicrobial agents in case of healthy animal is it's a controversial whether to use or not, because the development of the bacterial resistance. So it is commonly employed in the following conditions. Number one, to prevent infections in the dirty contaminated wounds, then to prevent infections after surgical operations, and also to prevent postpartum infections in dams after normal parturition. Then also to prevent the secondary bacterial invasion in case of viral infection. So this is very common during this COVID-19 situation, because the virus, coronavirus, COVID-19 virus, the SARS-CoV virus is going to infect the human, and because of the immunosuppression action, the secondary complications may occur due to the bacterial load. So hence we are using the azithromycin or doxycycline in this particular infections. And to prevent infections in disease outbreak or epidemic, whenever there is an outbreak, then we need to use. And also to prevent infections in endemic areas with high transmission rate. Endemic area is the one where the occurrence of the disease will be very high. Example is the anthrax and also the hemorrhagic septicemia. Because in case of the animals, these bacteria may be there naturally, and they will grow whenever they get the opportunity to cause the infections, especially the compromised immune system. Then natural resistance is generally characteristic of the group of genus bacteria. Then it is well known to the practitioner's bacterial resistance. For example, the gram-negative organisms are resistant to penicillin G and vancomycin. That's the natural resistance. Whereas the acquired resistance is the one when an organism becomes resistant to the antimicrobial agent to whom it was previously sensitive. The resistance is called as the acquired resistance. Whereas the acquired, see here the acquired resistance, previously the bacteria was susceptible, now it has got the resistance, that means it is acquired the resistant property. So the acquired resistance develops over a period of time and initially is not known to the practitioners. So they will know it after so many days when using a certain antimicrobial agents. So unlike the natural substance, the acquired resistance can happen with any microbe and is a great threat to the antimicrobial therapy, especially the natural resistance. So the acquired resistance in the microorganisms has been ascribed to mainly the widespread and inappropriate use of the antimicrobial drugs. So the antimicrobial drugs do not induce the resistance, but generally help in the selection of the antibacterial agent. So they are inherently resistant. Then mechanism of acquired resistance.